And we are back. Thank you very much for staying with us right here on SABC News. The Deputy Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Reginah Mhaule, is expected to address business stakeholders as part of a series of activities linked to South Africa's role as chair of BRICS. And since its inception in 2009, the Brazil, Russia, India and China BRIC grouping has grown in stature internationally. South Africa joined BRIC in 2010, becoming a fifth member of this bloc, hence the acronym BRICS. BRICS countries have met annually to enhance cooperation among themselves and discuss issues of concern, and including global governance reforms, development challenges and security concerns. South Africa has assumed the rotational chairmanship of the BRICS formation from the People's Republic of China from the 1st of January to the 31st of December 2018. To unpack this, we have in the studio Jan Cruikshanks, who is the chief economist with the South African Institute for Race Relations. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
Well, since South Africa joined BRICS,
yes,
is this relationship really working for the country?
I don't think it has been working for anybody particularly well, and that is partly because we've had a very low level of global economic activity, and that's what it's all about, promoting economic activity within this group, primarily for their benefit, and also in the context of the group to make them a strong, cohesive partnership in dealing with the rest of the world. No, there hasn't been a lot of progress yet.
Now, if there hasn't been a lot of progress, currently the issue of tariffs being imposed by the US on aluminium and steel products.
Yes.
If it can happen to China, then it means it can happen to anybody if there is lamentation from that country regarding the way it's saying the US is approaching this matter through protectionism.
That's right, and that's very important, those two factors that you just mentioned, steel and aluminium. After all, they're a major input into the motor manufacturing industry, and we export a lot of vehicles in size, in our terms, it's a lot, into the United States. If they should say we're going to make your vehicles 20% more expensive, boy, that's a body blow. And we'll find that then we'll have to go to government and ask for more help from them to promote that sort of business, that sort of export business. It's a very difficult situation, and it doesn't look like the American partnership is too much on the side of promoting that business into company business.
Why does it seem like there isn't any improvement in as far as the intra-trade connectedness of the BRICS countries? And if we draw an example from these two parallels, South Africa hosted the World Cup in 2010. We were expecting to have an upward trajectory of the economic performance.
Right.
Brazil, same thing, they hosted the World Cup. They are in recession right now.
That's
and
right.
The two countries can also be characterized with high levels of corruption in government.
Yes, regrettably, that is a fact of life. And I think that you're right. If you look at Brazil, Russia is on the way to improving again, but their fortune's very much tied to the oil price, which has been very volatile and not necessarily sustainable. India is in a strong growth mode, but they want to export, what we don't necessarily want. We may find ourselves competing with them, and that's a difficulty there. And of course with China, everyone wants to deal with China, but that's a diminishing market for the majority of exporters.
Let's look at what all these countries bring to the table.
Yes.
South Africa having quite impeccable policy proposals in as far as the three pillars of alleviating poverty, unemployment and inequality. And they say that they are designing their participation in BRICS to help achieve inclusive growth. But yet in South Africa you have more than 27% of the population living in poverty, high unemployment rate, and there seems to be no movement. So then, if that is the problem, what should the solution be?
The solution is internal, primarily, I think. Yes, we have a horrifying unemployment rate. Officially 27%, unofficially the real rate, if one takes those people who've been completely discouraged, it's 10% higher, it's probably 37%. And the youth is an even higher percentage. Nothing is resulting in credit to that sector. I think there are three things that we have to concentrate on. We don't at the moment, but we need to give foreign capitalists security of their assets in South Africa. We can't keep moving the goalposts on what we want them to attain. We've got to have a constant, reliable, cost-effective electricity supply. And I'm afraid that's just not showing up at the moment with the blackouts that we've been having, with increased tariffs of 10 to 20%. That's not working. And Labour has to understand that the employers want to pay them more, but they've got to do more on the production side. Productivity has to improve, and that's not happening. And you say, prove it. It's not hard. We spoke to one of the motor manufacturers, regrettably no longer with us. They said, give us those three things and we'll consider investing in South Africa. And until then, we won't. What have they done? They've packed up and gone after 100 years of operation here. We're not helping ourselves.
What is the use of prestige, leadership and chairmanship of the BRICS summit when you can say that South Africa is a limping chairman? Yes. Look at the South African current account deficit today. We have figures coming out. It has widened to 4.8%. Yes. Our GDP figures are not impressive. 2%. The economy has shrunk. We currently have the manufacturing in the country, and the manufacturing industry is not doing well, and the agricultural industry, you saw when the GDP figures came out, we were 26.8% down during that time. So what is the use of South Africa having this prestige that we host international events, and we are the #1 politically stable country on the continent, and we lead the way?
Doesn't say much for the continent, does it? But I think the thing is that, you know, it's like collecting a business card. You may not do business with the other person right away, but it's there as a future contact. And I think we may gather potential contacts for our trade relationships with those inside and outside the BRICS grouping who could help us, with whom we could grow our trade in due course. We're not in a position right now to grow our own abilities ourselves, so let's rather just say that it's a future investment. We won't see the result for some time into the future. Okay,
we heard the news that investor sentiment in South Africa could possibly grow, given that we have been on a roadshow to lure investors to come to South Africa. Yes. And there are roadshows that are happening throughout the country right now, pre the BRICS summit.
Right.
So going into this summit right now as the chairperson, do you think that galvanizing business into action for international trade cooperation would accentuate the level of participation for South African companies, and also improve on, you know, narrowing the import-export widening gap that we have in the country?
If we've got to galvanize the private sector into action, we've got to give them an assurance of what the benefit may be. Until we are quite sure that we're going to get a business conducive environment, it's going to be very difficult to do so. And I think what do we need? We need a greater environment where there's going to be global commodity demand, where we can do what we're best at doing, digging stuff out the ground and selling it in a non-beneficiated point of view. We've got to get that climate, our global climate, improved, and until then it's going to be very difficult, very challenging indeed, to persuade the private sector that there's a lot in it for them in the short term.
On a parting shot, is there hope for South Africa to really come out of the woods and go back to its glory days?
To come out of the woods and to improve, yes. We have to just be sure of those three items I meant: security of assets, electricity supply, understanding of labour on the principles of business. I think this will take time to develop. As and when it does, I see a growing, strong potential for the South African economy. It's got to be a committed move to capitalism rather than socialism. There lies the rub.
Let's hope that will be seen to be done.
Right.
Thank you very much. Ian Cruikshanks, who is the Chief Economist at the South African Institute for Race Relations, and of course bringing us now to just a pause to our business segment. We're going to take a breather right now, and when we come back, we have a recap of the headlines with Cash and Peter.